Hey, what's going on? Ray DelVecchio here from websiteprofitcourse.com. We're going to walk through the most common ways that you can secure your WordPress website, and we're starting here on the login page. When you install WordPress, you might have the username admin. This is the first thing you want to change. Make sure that you create a new admin account that has a unique username, because this is the first username that hackers are going to try when they attempt to log into your website. The next thing you want to do is look up here at the URL. The WordPress login page is under this PHP file, wp-login. There are plugins that you can install that can change this URL so people don't know what your login URL actually is. You can make that a custom page. The other thing is that you want to make sure your website is using the secure HTTPS version and not the HTTP. So in order to do that, you have to have a security certificate installed, which normally comes default with almost every web host nowadays. So let's log in and look at the admin area. From here, just to go through a few of the things we talked about, to create a new user account, go to the users section. You can do add new, and then once you add a new admin user, you can delete the existing user if they have that admin username. You're not able to change your username once you have an account created. And then for the HTTPS, you go over to the settings page. Under the general settings, this is where you're going to want to make sure you're using HTTPS. If you don't have this, make sure you have a security certificate installed and then change the URL over to HTTPS. And then let's go over to the plugins page. You can add a plugin called Really Simple SSL. If you just do add new and search for it, it should be one of the first ones that comes up, and this is automatically going to redirect any HTTP requests over to the secure HTTPS version. I have another plugin already installed. That's the next thing here. This is Limit Login Attempts Reloaded. Hackers are going to try and log in over and over again, test different usernames and passwords. They use bots to do this automatically. So what this does is it keeps track of all the attempts to log into your website, and then you can block it either based on IP address. You can lock people out after a certain number of wrong attempts. So let's go over to that page over here in Settings, Limit Login Attempts. Thankfully today I have 0 failed login attempts. You can go over to the settings, and this is where you adjust everything. You can send a notification if someone gets locked out. And these are the settings that I have applied here. I'm allowing 3 retries, so just in case you accidentally type in something wrong, you don't want to lock yourself out. If you get to this 3 retries and you don't enter a correct password, they're going to be locked out for 30 minutes. And I think I increased this more than what the default settings were just because I had a couple issues with this. The retries are reset after 12 hours, and if somebody's locked out 3 times, then the lockout time is actually increased to 48 hours. Over in the log section, this is where it's going to show you your lockout log. If I scroll down here, you can see the attempts here made to log into my account. And if you see an IP address coming in over and over again, you can add it up here to the block list. You also may see people trying to log in as the admin or other usernames, and if you don't have an account under a username, you can block a username. So I highly recommend that you just block admin by default under this block list. If you don't have this plugin installed and you can't view the logs through here, you should be able to access your web server logs from your web hosting account. That's obviously going to depend on who you're using as a web host. Go into an FTP program like FileZilla. That'll allow you to go to your web server, download those logs, and you should be able to see the URLs that are being accessed. Obviously, some of them are going to be real. It might be you, your IP address, accessing certain plugins or pages. But if you see the login page getting accessed or an IP that is outside your country, something like that, you may want to ask your web hosting support to see if they can do anything to help you out or install a plugin like this to do it yourself. The next issue I want to discuss, which I was dealing with recently after transferring some of my websites to SiteGround, is what's called an XMLRPC attack. There's this file within your WordPress installation called XMLRPC.php, and the other host that I use, Kinsta, they have a great blog post going through this if you want to read more about it. Basically, all you need to know is that this file was used to remotely communicate with WordPress if other applications or you wanted to do something without logging into your WordPress website through the user interface. This is what was used, and WordPress has since transitioned to an API. That stands for Application Programming Interface, and that's a little bit more secure than what this is. Hackers will try and get into this file, and I was noticing if I go over to my SiteGround site tools here, over under the statistics traffic page, they show you the pages that are most accessed, and I was noticing that this XML RPC file was being hit more often than any other file on the website, And that obviously leads you to believe that those traffic visits are not coming from real visitors, they're coming from hackers. So within this Kinsta guide, they show you a couple different ways that you can disable it. If I go down to that section here, you can see there's a way to do it with a plugin, without a plugin, or you can ask your hosting provider to do it for you. The way that I chose to do it was through the htaccess file. If I scroll down here, there's a little piece of code that you can copy and paste to your htaccess file, which that's going to be on your top level domain if you access it through FileZilla. So if I go over into the file manager here within SiteGround, that's going to show us the same thing. And from here we can check out our htaccess file. I'll just right click and edit it, and you can see this is the piece of code that I copy and pasted, and as soon as I did this, that stopped all those attacks from happening, and it drastically reduced the amount of CPU cycles that the server was using. But if you follow the checkpoints that we've been through in this video, make sure you have a strong username and password, you're not using admin as your username, you have your website on HTTPS, you block this XMLRPC file, and by the way, there's a site within that Kinsta blog post where you can check it. So if I go over here and check my website, you'll see that it's forbidden. So if you don't get this failed message, you know that XMLRPC is active and you're going to want to disable it. If you do that and then have that limit login attempts installed, that's going to drastically reduce your vulnerability. And the last thing, which is probably the most obvious, you want to keep your WordPress software up to date. So right now, if you go over to the plugins, within the latest version of WordPress, they have the automatic updates built into the plugins. Depending on how complex your setup is, you may want to have a staging area to do updates to make sure that nothing breaks your site. I don't really have that many issues because most of the plugins that I have installed are very common ones that are updated often, that are always compatible with the newest version of WordPress. I highly recommend that you use the least amount of plugins possible. You don't want to have tons and tons of plugins because the more plugins you have, the more vulnerability you have, and the more complexity there is, the more of the chance that they're going to not play nice with each other and cause issues. But make sure that you're always keeping your site up to date. Plugins, then you can go over to the dashboard update section to update the core WordPress software, and you also want to do the same with your themes. And if you do those couple of things, any vulnerabilities that happen within those pieces of code, the plugins, the themes, the WordPress core software, you're going to patch them before the hackers have a chance to exploit your site. And it's important to realize that WordPress is the most popular website building software on the web. And that's great because there's so much support out there. You have so many options for functionality for building your site. But the downside of that is that means that hackers are going to target WordPress more than other sites. Lastly, I just want to mention that some of the things we talked about you can do through plugins. So there's a couple plugins that are very popular. The plugin that gets pre-installed with WordPress, Jetpack, that has security built into it. If we just do a search here for security, I want to mention two of them. One of them is called iThemes Security, and we see that down here. It's got over 1 million active installations. The security plugin that they've developed is one of the most popular out there today. If I click on more details, you can kind of see what they take care of here. So they offer two-factor authentication, which is another way to protect your site. They scan for malware. They let you generate secure passwords right from the profile screen. Update your passwords regularly with password expiration. You can integrate with Google reCAPTCHA for your forms. Keep track of when people are changing your WordPress website, other users, if you have multiple user accounts. So they got a lot to offer for free, and obviously they have a paid upgrade to give you even more features. The other most popular one here is WordFence, and they probably have very similar features. I've never used this one specifically, but I've seen it pop up time and time again when searching for security articles. So if you don't want to do some of this stuff manually and you just want to go with a plugin, I highly recommend those two. But that's really the basics to securing your WordPress website. Just make sure that you're doing the fundamentals and you have a password manager so you can use strong passwords and you have backups to your site in case anything goes wrong. That's all I got for this video. If you learned anything in this, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel for more WordPress videos. And if you're still a beginner with WordPress, I got a video series that will take you through all the basics to learn the admin area. We'll go more in depth into every section here within the admin area on how you can update your website. And if you're looking to build a blog, I got step-by-step training on how you can do that within 14 days. That goes beyond WordPress into how you're going to market your blog, drive traffic, and make money. So if you're looking to do either of those things, check out the links below. And I'll link up a couple videos here if you want to keep browsing and learning. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you have a great day.